All right, and now let us look at some of the statistics when it comes to the creative industry, and we're going to start with unemployment in Kenya on the wall. And when we're looking at Kenyans without a job, where we have 2.97 million Kenyans, this is according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, and of the 2.97 million, we have more than half who are youth between the years of 20 and 29. And most of them, you find they are the ones who are really involved in this particular creative industry. Let us move on and look at economic survey, the 2023 economic survey, where we have the creative industry that contributes 5% to the GDP. That is the gross domestic product of Kenya. And this particular industry contributes 5%. And where we also have, it's the one that is involved in the creating of jobs in this particular sector, and also offering entertainment at large. Now, the jobs in the creative space, as we've spoken about them, we have graphic designers, we have photographers, advertising, we have lighting technician, makeup artist, director, dancers, video editors, and of the likes, and also even performing arts in this particular creative space. Now, lastly, we're looking at the 2023 World Economic Forum report, future of jobs, and they will entail critical thinking, problem solving, and technology literacy. Let us stick to the technology literacy. And these statistics are going now to be leading us to our conversation of the day, where we're speaking about the creative industry in technology. So therefore, let's get to our conversation of the day, where we are looking at this. And joining us is Brian Afande, who is the CEO and co-founder Black Rhino VR. That is, I believe, virtual reality.
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. Now, we've looked at some of the statistics that we have, and we've seen these days, the content creators are like the ones who are taking over. So on your perspective, where are we in terms of growth in this particular sector?
I mean, it's interesting to see the creative economy, and thank you for those statistics. I feel like in terms of growth, number one, access to information. You know, the internet has created opportunities to democratize information. So a lot of these young people are being able to access all this information, because there's a huge skills gap that exists from the skills that are acquired in institutions of higher learning to the skills that are required in the market.
Yes.
When you look at these demographics, then there's individuals who are excluded from this sort of participation because they cannot either pay school fees to get into these institutions, etc. So what you see currently is a lot of individuals are going online to teach themselves. I mean, I sit here today and I'm a CEO of a company, but I taught myself how to build AR and VR just because of watching YouTube videos for the past 10 years. So that's number one. And also now access to hardware and software. A lot of individuals can go online, they can be able to subscribe to some of these channels where they can be able to ship in equipment. So I'm seeing information dramatically being accessed by a lot of young individuals. But also the second thing is a lot of people are opening up their mindsets. Because the power of the creative economy is really when they can be able to understand how to build, how to be industry leaders in their own segments and teach themselves how to do this stuff. But at the end of the day, they can be able to also access information that exists out there.
All right. Now, let's look at the penetration of the digital transformation that has been happening over the years. I mean, these days, everything is almost digital.
Yeah.
So with Kenya being the leader in this particular region, because we are the tech hub, as people usually
Silicon
say,
Savannah.
the Silicon Savannah.
Yes.
You will give us also what this means, because at the end of the day, you find that some areas within the country, the internet is really, really poor, is not we are not able to get the full internet connections that are supposed to be there. But now, let's look at this particular perspective. When we have a creative industry that is still growing, and on this other side, the government is not really tapping into this particular sector of the creative industry. So at the end of the day, we have imbalance when it comes to where the sector is supposed to move to and where and what the government is supposed to do. So what is your reaction into this, because you've been in this space?
Interesting question. I say that there's this asymmetrical relationship that exists with the government and the creative economy. And I think because, number one, government will only come when they see value and the value has to circulate. So within the creative economy, we have to also be able to develop use cases that can allow the government to see the potential. We are Kenyans here and we have to be honest about what's happening. Until the government is able to see that value, then they're not able to put in place policies that can be able to support this growth. That's number one. Number two, the content creators also don't want to take part in governance, in legislature. They want pencil pushers, sorry for that word, they want pencil pushers and guys wearing fancy suits to make laws for them. We need to see creative individuals coming up and saying that they're going to run for office and they are going to be able to also stand in the gap for the other people in the creative economy, setting the right policies that can create a conducive environment to grow. So until we are able to demonstrate the value within the creative economy for them to see that, and what's happening right now, the private sector has filled that gap. Because remember, there's a gap between the government and the creative economy, right? The private sector has filled that gap. Institutions like Hiva Fund are having funds. Right now, if you go online, they're giving out credit and loans on individuals who have creative businesses. I mean, I'm a beneficiary of a Hiva grant of about 180,000 euros that went into building a platform. So you see the private sector are seeing the value in the creative economy. And the government, if the government doesn't see that right now, they'll be playing second fiddle to a lot of individuals who already see that capacity.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, let's look at a person who is a content creator, but they don't have the right market to focus on. Because as we started earlier, when I mentioned about these days within the CBD, everyone wants to create content. Everyone is shooting something somewhere. They have a camera. They're doing all this, the photography. They're doing videography. They want to just create content for themselves. Where does this youth, where does this particular young person take this content to? And how do they make sure that they are above the rest? Because almost everyone is doing it.
So first, for the content creators creating content out there, they need to have a critical separation. What separates your content from the rest, right? That's number one. Number two, monetization. I'm going to spend money to build content, but do I have platforms that will allow me to monetize my content? So I believe when they're making these critical decisions about who their audiences are, where your audience is, I mean, there's so many platforms that these young people can leverage on. You have your Snapchats, you have your Instagram. There's all these platforms they can be able to leverage. But where's your audience? Another thing that is lacking is also people to understand not just where the audience is, but data that can support those decisions. I want to go and shoot a video for, I don't know, doing something, but I don't know if there's a certain need for that video in the industry. So what happens, I'm one of the very many people who are actually doing that. So if you don't leverage either your skills in terms of editing, in terms of how you're, in terms of your production workflow, in terms of how you're going to package it, then you end up losing out to individuals who have been in the industry for so long. So there is need for us to be able to benchmark what's happening, being created out there. I mean, because people can access a lot of information, the world has become a bubble. Today I can be able to access New York Times information. Early in the morning they send me briefs on my phone, and anyone else can be able to access that. So if we're going to be creating content out there, make sure that your benchmark is just not local.
Okay.
The benchmark has to be something that has proven that it's international, and there's ways people can be able to consume that content and understand how to build it in a higher fidelity level.
All right. Now, let's bring in technology and how it's coming in to change this creative industry.
Yeah.
Because everyone these days is moving towards that side.
Yeah.
So when you look at the innovations within the tech space, how are they coming in to change this? And if they're coming in as a country, what are we doing in order for us to tap into this?
You're asking some pretty hard questions. I mean, I don't think I'm the ambassador of the creative economy, but I'll tell you something, because I've run a tech company for the last 10 years in the creative economy. One thing is technology is here and it's not going away. It's a matter of evolution. We are currently in the fourth industrial revolution, which will fundamentally change how we relate to each other, how we speak, and how we live. In its scale, complexity, everything, it'll change that. So what I'm seeing right now is this technology is here for you to leverage on it. It's here for you to understand your audience. It's here for you to create what you call phygital experiences. I believe the future of communication is phygital. where you can be able to access both physical touch points and digital touch points into one unified seamless experience. Now what's happening, because there's a lot of information going on out there, the attention span of human beings has reduced. So you see people consuming nuggets of information. But because they're consuming nuggets of information, what can I do to leverage technology to get to my target audience within those nuggets of information?
Yes.
For instance, I could leverage on augmented reality, because augmented reality promised me as technology that it can be able to digitally superimpose a digital layer on any existing system. So whether or not it's books, whether or not, because I feel like in the digital era, books and all these other legacy systems don't really come into play. You're adding digital value and layers on top of it. Number one, you leverage on the information and data you get in the back end. Number two, it's a differentiated experience that people can be able to consume. Whether or not it's animation, whether or not it's VR or VFX, it doesn't matter. And also because of the technology, it's reducing the workflow and the pipeline for producing stuff. I mean, there's right now artificial intelligence that can be able to reduce technical workflows and allow individuals to also pivot on that. It can be able to create what you call quality systems within a production. Let's say you shot something in Tao, and when you shot it, there was a lot of background noise. AI can be able to allow you to filter that background noise. So young people need to understand that technology is here as an enabler, and they need to understand how it can be able to work for them and try to bridge that gap and create a relationship with the technology.
See, now you've really answered it, actually. It wasn't even hard. Anyway, so even as we look at this, we are looking at augmented reality and virtual reality. And you see, these are new, sort of new things that are coming into the creative space in order to make it a little bit easier. So is it the future when you look at it? Is it the future of creative industry? And if it's the future, what are we supposed to do?
Listen, I'm not going to even contradict myself. It is the future. And the reason why I say the future is because it's evolution. You had the first industrial revolution. When you look at from the first industrial revolution, where a second industrial revolution, third, where we see engines being propelled by steam. You saw third industrial revolution where they are leveraging on the internet. We are in the spatial computing era.
Yes.
And in this spatial computing era, it's created opportunities for other technologies to work within what we call the peripherals. You have blockchains, you have the IoTs, you have different technologies, AR, VR. It is a matter of evolution. Now, when you're looking at this evolution, then there's also critical, what would say, decisions that have to be made. Number one, what is the response of Africans to this digital revolution? Africans, are we only going to be consumers of technology, or are we going to be leaders in technology? And by leaders in technology, are we going to start manufacturing our own technology? Because there seems to be a colonial sort of approach when it comes to digital technology. And this colonial approach is led in the sense that a lot of people in the global north feel they can impose the technology to the global south, and we can be able to consume it. So my challenge for each and every content creator out there is stop just consuming. Start creating the technology behind it. Start being able to create workflows and create an ecosystem around you. They all come from different spheres of influence. How can they create technology within those spheres of influence for some people to benefit on? And for me, monetization is a huge thing. So we need to also look at how these young people can be able to monetize, because they don't want to wear ties like us. I mean, I chill with t-shirts also, but hey. But so I'm just saying monetization models is so important for them. But I've seen also the government taking steps in that. The other day, the Meta team was here in Kenya where they had a conversation with Ruto. And the idea behind it was that they're going to start monetizing at least within the Meta platforms so that content creators can start earning from that. But when you're looking at it, Meta is also not from Kenya.
All right.
Yeah.
And now, because you've mentioned, there's something you mentioned about we now start creating our own. We don't consume from what is coming from outside.
Yeah.
But now, what needs to be done in order for us to start creating our own? Because you see, you can imagine someone who is really trying to use whatever platform they can, because they don't have really the knowledge that is supposed to be there. So what goes into this in terms of should it be introduced in schools? Should it be introduced in different universities? What needs to be done? Because creating our own, we can say it very easily, but you see now when it comes to now doing it, what needs to be done?
First, a lot of people are content that the arts have been relegated to after-school activities in schools.
Yes.
It's been relegated. Now, when you look at that relegation, it means that I can be, only if you can be able to afford it, your children can be able to afford it, or you can be able to afford it for your children, then they get into the arts. Number one, that has to be addressed. Number two, as Kenyans, we need to start appreciating our culture. You cannot consume something that you don't like. You cannot consume something that doesn't speak to you. Let us also use human-centered design approach to build for the target audience. If I'm going to build for Kenya, let me understand that Kenya is one market. I can be able, with the day and age right now with technology, I can also be able to go into other markets and tap into other global value chains. So the same way as Kenyans, we are always consuming, soft power is so strong, by the way. Nigerian music, we're watching films from the States, from Philippines, from all over the world. Kenyans need to start looking at a global market as a market and be genuine about it. So when you walk in the streets, also a lot of this influence that we have is really not Kenyan influence. I mean, we really need to start appreciating our culture, but also look at it from a business-centric perspective. Culture is one thing, but how do I package culture as a business? And this is really where I think there's going to be change.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Now we've come to the end. You can give us your parting shot, even as we come to a close.
Okay. First, thank you for this opportunity.
Yes.
I want to tell any person out there, young person out there, that technology is a matter of evolution and it is here to stay. There's technologies like augmented reality and virtual reality. Please take it from me as someone who grew up in hard circumstances that I'm where I am because I taught myself how to do stuff, right? So go on the internet, Google what AR is, how you can build that stuff, how you can produce it, and start it. Because no one is going to come to knock on your door and tell you, here's a gift for you. So for any young person out there, whether or not you're holding a camera, whether or not you're on a paintbrush, you're a digital artist, the phygital era is here to stay.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That is Bran Afande, who is the co-founder and CEO at Black Rhino VR, that is virtual reality, speaking to us about the creative industry in technology. All right, we've come to the end of this particular edition of Business Today. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi. Stick around. Yeri will be here with Mbiu ya KTN.